Rome was gripped the chaos late Tuesday. A violent storm swept across the Italian capital, bringing torrential rain, hail and lightning strikes have plunged the parts of the city in darkness. Within an hour, the storm transformed cobblestone streets into rivers and flooded metro tunnels, leaving the residents stranded in an emergency service stretcher within. The Italian Civil Protection Department confirmed over 800 emergency calls overnight. Streets surrounding Piazza Venezia, Termini Station and Vatican were submerged under the half-meter of water. Local media reported dozens of vehicles stranded with the fallen trees, crushed parked cars and blocked tram lines. "I felt like the sky was collapsing," said Francesca Rinaldi, the resident of Trastevere. "The thunder was constant, it shook windows, we had the struggle hitting the roof, I threw the glass would shatter." Meteorologists described the storm as a part of the Mediterranean supercell, feeling the unstably warm sea and the cold wind with the cold front moving south from the Alps. Wind reached 19 km per hour, and a hailstorm the size of walnuts battered rooftops and monuments. Dramatic footage circulated online showing lightning strikes near the Colosseum and illumination St. Petersburg sky and the flashing era wide. The Tiber rivers were rapidly prompted warning to the residents living along the banks. Rome against infrastructure is not built in such intensity, such Professor Enzo Mariani, a climate analyst from the Super Zen University. This is another reminder that climate change is making extreme weather for more frequent is unpredictable across southern Europe. Rome faced an unexpected and ferocious hailstorm yesterday, transforming the historic streets and the eternal city into the winter-like scene in the middle of autumn. Within the minutes, hailstorm is large as walnuts pelted rooftops, cars and entering cobblestones caused widespread damage. Residents were caught off guard. It was like a wall of ice come from the sky, said Marco Ricci, who was walking near the Pisa Nava. The hail smashed car windows and bounced the sidewalk. We can reach the cover. Tourists and local alike scrambled to find shoulders and streets quickly flooded in ice water. Emergency services were overwhelmed. Firefighters and civil protection teams responded to hundreds of calls involving fallen trees, blocked roads and stranded vehicles. In the Trastevere district, metro station and houses were temporarily submerged and buses were forced to reroute. Meteorologists described the storm of sudden and extreme caused by the Mediterranean low-pressure system interacted with warm, humid air from Africa. This condition can produce very violent storm in a short time. Late Monday evening, a severe hailstorm hit Rome, surprised residents and covered the ancient streets and the capital with a layer of ice. The sudden storm turned into eternal city wide, disrupting traffic, damaged cars and causing flash flooding in several areas. Within the minutes, the sky darkened in the sound of hailstorm, sound the size of a golf ball, echoing across rooftops, the courtyard. Video posted on social media showed streams of water following down the Spanish steps and vacations marble courtyard glistening under the layer of ice. "It was like an apocalypse," said Elena Rossi, owner of a shop near Piazza Venezia. "The hail was so heavy, it broke part of our glass canopy. People were running to cover." Emergency services were quickly overwhelmed, responded to more than 400 calls across the city about flooding, fallen trees and damaged cars. Several metro stations were temporarily closed due to water ingress and buses were forced to reroute through the less affected areas. The storm also affected key landmarks. Parts of Trastevere and Oceanis were left without power and several hours, where lightning lit up the sky above the Colosseum and St. Petersburg, creating dramatic and frightening scenes. ferocious hailstorm hit Sicily on a Wednesday. City residents and tourists feeling the streets were transformed into the city torrents. Cities including Palermo, Catania and Messina facing torrential rain hailstorms up to golf ball size and a gale strong enough to apron trees and damaged rooftop. Local eyewitness Gianni Russo described the scene. It was a chaos, hail bouncing off cars, warning the rise in a minute. People were running to cover and noise were left under multiple tender. Emergency service reported over 400 calls for the rapid motorists, fallen branches and damaged property. Several small rivers overflowed, forcing evacuation in low-light districts. Historic neighborhoods were not spared. Streets in Palermo town were flooded with iconic squares like Piazza Petronia and other particularly submerged. Hail pelted centuries-old buildings, leaving shattered roof tiles and dented hulks in the wake. Agriculture in Sicily took a severe hit. Vineyards, olive groves, and citrus orange in Catania and Saragossa provinces suffered massive losers. Farmer Luca Bianchi said, "Our entire harvest is destroyed in a matter of minutes. The hail was relentless." Meteorologists from the Italian Air Force Meteorological Center attributed the phenomenon of supercell storm. They explained it in a result from the sudden collisions between most air from the Tyrrhenian Sea and a cold front air masses moving south from the Central Europe. The constant created the perfect environment for the formation of giant hailstones, explained senior meteorologist Elena Moletti. Public transportation suffered severe disruption with the metro line E temporarily suspended due to flooding at multiple stations. Major arterial roads in the city experienced severe traffic conditions, paralyzed urban function. Authority urged residents to avoid non-essential outing while drainage channels and roads continue to be clear. Experts warn this phenomenon is a part of concerned terrain. Climate analyst Dr. Paolo Rossi stated, "These extreme weather events are not longer isolated occurrences, they are increasing in frequency and intensity, representing a direct sign of climate change impacting the Mediterranean basin." Amid the chaos, no fatalities were reported, though the several people sustained minor injuries from the flying debris. As a calm returned, Rome was reminded once again, ever is timeless, beauty cannot escape the growing fury of nature.
Questo è un grosso problema, molto grosso. Porta via il negozio qua, adesso porta via macchine e tutto.
According to Italy's Civil Protection Department, the storm was part of the weather system moving across central city, Italy, where warm Mediterranean air collided vitally with a cold front from the northern Europe. It was an explosive mix, said meteorologist Giulia Bianchi. The sudden temperature drop triggered intense convection, prompting hail and unusual size of this time of year. Shops and restaurants in Trastevere accompanied forest suffered flood with outdoor churches, terraces and markets still destroyed. Several hospitals reported minor injuries, mostly from the people slipping or brain stuck in fallen debris. It lasted barely 20 minutes, said cafe owner Aliza Romano, but the damages caused local like hurricane airspace. The storm aftermath left Rome's historic landmarks cratered in ice and a rail haunting size. Tourists shaped photos to Colosseum and Spanish steps, gilding the under street slides, and the city crews walked through the night to clear debris and restore normal traffic. Experts warn that extreme weather like this could become more frequent. Mediterranean storms are intensified due to climate change, said climatologist Dr. Lorenzo Conte. Rome may see more violent hail and flash flood in the recent heat. As a calm returned by morning, Romans awoke the melted hail and the city shaking the yet another reminder to nature growing unpredictability.
Madre de Dios. Su, qué desastre. Mira. Ahora mismo en Garachico.
Italy. This week violent hailstorm struck parts of the northern and central Italy, unleashed golf ball-sized ice and town of transformed roads, vineyards and city squares into frozen rivers. Described by meteorological as one of the most intense storms in the recent years, the disaster caused widespread damage to homes, vehicles and agriculture. Living residents tended it is set in fury. The hardest hit region were Lombardy, Emilia-Romagna and Tuscany. In Bologna, hail shattered windows and damaged roofs. In Milan, a wide streets of ice-covered streets completely paralyzing traffic. Sudden flooding added the chaos, flooding emergency service with the hundreds of rescue requests. Carlo Benedetti, a resident of Madeira, said it was terrified when in minutes the sky turned pitch black and the thousand near rooms of ice were crashing down. The hailstorms with such force they shattered titles and dented cars' bodies on the streets. According to meteorological from the Italy Civil Protection Department, the storm was triggered by the violent collision between warm air from the Mediterranean and a cold front moving from the Central Europe. Chaos and disbelief swept through the Italian capital as a ferocious hailstorm tore across Rome, blanketed streets in ice, flooding tunnels and living residents trapped in their cars and homes. The storm, which struck suddenly in the late afternoon, turned into Eternal City, into the witness described it as a frozen battlefield. Meteorologists said the event was triggered by a clash between the warm Mediterranean air and rapidly advanced Arctic front, a combination that prodded towering thunderstorm and the severe hail. Within moments, hailstorm the size of large coins plumped the city, shattered windows and dented vehicles across entire neighborhoods. I've lived in Rome. In whole life, I never seen anything like it, said 34-year-old Yale taxi driver Marco De Santis. The storm unleashed torrents in the city water through the several districts, including Trastevere, San Giovanni, and Ossa, where drainage system was overwhelmed. Firefighters reported to more than 1,500 emergency calls, rescuing stranded motorists and pumped water from metro station and underground garage. Power cuts hit multiple areas, while traffic across A19 ring road ground to half an hour. Photos and videos shared online showed rivers of ice flowing through the incident, cobblestone streets and a half-building knee-deep around the famous landmark. The Trevi Foundation overflowed with a ruin of water, while parts of Via del Corso resembled glacier. Rome, a city more accustomed to the golden sun, said that the ice storm was hit by an unusual hailstorm that covered its streets and the thick layer of ice. The sudden downpour, which lasted then an hour, brought daily life to the sudden health, forced residents and tourists to try to understand the extent of the damage. Meteorologists' incidents confirmed the hailstorm was caused by the collisions of warm Mediterranean air masses with a sharp cold front from the northern Europe. Strong updrafts formed hailstorm the size of a golf ball, which damaged roofs, smashed shop windows, and left cars covered in dent. It caused chaos and transformation. Several metro stations were forced to close due to flooding and major roads turned into rivers and a melted slush. Emergency service reported rescued dozens of people trapped in their cars, while firefighters rushed to clear a fallen bridge and restore blocked drainage system. In 30 years of service, I have never seen a room suffer so much from ice, said the fire brigade representative. Hospitals across the capital treated dozens of people who were injured after slipper of ice sidewalks. Tourists visited landmarks such as Piazza Venezia and Spanish Steps, described surreal scene. We thought it was snowing, but the hail became so heavy that it hurt, recalled Anna, a tourist from Germany. Farmers in Lazio Rome was left standing after extraordinary hailstorm turned in the Athenian city into the local described the sudden winter in September. Streets across the capital, including area near the Colosseum and Piazza Venezia, were blanketed a thick layer of ice, disrupting traffic and caused widespread astonishment. The violent storm struck with a little warning, planted the city with a hailstone the size of a walnut. Within minutes, the rain were overwhelming, leading the flash flood in low-lying districts. Motorists were forced to abandon cars and ice storms swept through the several avenues, while public buses struggled to navigate blocked roads. Emergency service reported dozens of calls to assistance. Firefighters were deployed to clear fallen branches and rescue drivers trapped to flooded in underpasses. No fatalities were confirmed, but several minor injuries occurred as people slipped on the ice-coated pavement. One resident told local media, "I lived in Rome 40 years. I never seen hell like this. I felt that the city had been dropped into another season." Meteorologists explained that the year was triggered by a clash of warm Mediterranean air with a powerful cold front from the northern Europe, creating ideal conditions from the hail formations.
Porco Dio, Dio.
Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni expressed her condolences and promised immediate government support. "We will not leave Sicily alone with this tragedy." The flood also caused significant economic damage. Vineyards, citrus groves, and olive farms are blackboard on Sicily economy, where flooded and agriculture groups warned of millions in losers. Businesses in the historic center of Palermo may be closed for the weeks and a half a month. The Italian Meteorological Service has linked a disaster to the Vatican and Mediterranean cyclone similar to the Trapon storm. Since when the climate change is exacerbating such phenomena as a warning sea contributing to heavier rains and a violent storm. Residents clearing debris are in shock. Standing outside the damaged barrier, Rosa Conte said, "Sicily is used to the hardship, but this is something else. We cannot fight this our own."
Meu Deus, o que é isso? Queimou com a minha casa. Queimou.
The Italian city of Palermo was left in shock after the severe storm swept through the Sicilian capital, bringing torrential rain, hurricane force winds and flash floods that paralyzed the city. Within hours, streets turned into raging rivers, swept away across the trapped residents in their homes. Emergency services were inundated with the cold, rescued dozens of people from flooded cars in the basement. "It was like a waterfall rushing throughout the streets," said a local shopkeeper. Describe it now if the store was destroyed in minutes. Hospitals reported an influx of patients suffering from the injured and hypothermia. Authorities confirmed several casualties and thousands of people were left without power as the power lines collapsed under the weight of fallen trees. The city's historic districts, usually bustling with the tourists, were usually empty as residents hid in their homes. The storm also disrupted vital infrastructure. Palermo Airport temporarily suspended flights and ferry service were halted due to wave crashed onto the coast. In rural area around the city, farmland was destroyed onto olive groves and vineyards were flooded, raising fears of significant losses to agriculture. Meteorologists said the storm was intensified by the warm water of the Mediterranean Sea, which follow unstoppable air masses. Conditions like to the border effects of the climate change. Italy's Civil Protection Agency warned that extreme weather conditions are becoming the new normal, and they call it to immediate investment to flood protection and the early warning system. Local authorities declared a state of emergency, and the government promising to allocate funds to deal with the aftermath of the national disaster. Volunteers joined to brigade the police to clear blocked roads, but recovery expected to take weeks to even months. As the sun rose over the devastation streets, scenes of resilience began to emerge. Volunteers from neighboring town arrived the shovels, pumps, and food supplies. In Catania University standard formed human chain to help clear debris to home of elderly residents. Church bells rang in solidarity of many communities, helped nightly prayers to injure and displace it. One image of white Sicily flag flying proudly over the flooded town hall became a national symbol of strength. Local media called at a room and declared a state of emergency to obtain additional funds in the rescue to rapid reconstruction. Engineers are now installing bridges and roads, help workers to warn the possible communication flow to overflow, thin and standing water. Meteorologists at Vito Italia say a storm system may be weakening the residual rains and extended to continue for several more days. The ground is standing with the water. Warning climatologist Dr. Elena Ferraro events tell additional rainfall could cause new floods and landslides. Environmental activists are calling this storm a wake-up call. This is not just a random error, said Lucia Marinel of Climate Italia. This is the result of decades of neglecting environmental policy of urban planning. We must change now. International support has begun to arrive at the form of offer assistance from the European Union of neighboring countries. Italian celebrities, soccer players, and Pope have been experiencing this solidarity. In just a few hours, some areas received more rainfall than they normally do into entire month. Schools and government official and affected areas were closed to precautions and civil protection until the disrupted assets the damage and assist in cleanup. In Palermo, several unprecedented were flooded rapid cars and landslides were reported in town located on hills. Experts warned that such intense and frequent storm could become a normal in southern Italy. Climatologists are urging authorities and citizens to strengthen infrastructure and emergency preparedness on the Mediterranean region continue to face the worsened effect of the global warming. As Sicily begins the cleanup, the storm severals are not yet another stark reminder on a growing instability of the nature and urgent need to action to ensure environmental sustainability. The Italian government has declared a state of emergency in the several regions, mobilized rescue workers and deployed to army to assist the evacuation force. Civil protection authorities have urged people in the affected areas to remind cautions to need official warning to forecast in coming days. Italian Prime Minister Giorgia Meloni visited in affected areas and presented their solidarity with the victims and pledged government support to reconstruction efforts. This is a national emergency and we are working closely with the local authorities to ensure the safety of all residents, she said. Climate experts warn that such extreme weather events become more frequent due to climate change. Italy, with a varied geography, is particularly vulnerable in the affected changing weather patterns. The combination of heavy rainfall, property, maintained infrastructure, and urban explosion into flood-prone areas in exact button the impact of the recent storms. In dramatic turn of events, Sicily finds itself indoors in unprecedented storm as nature unleashed any fury upon the picturesque Italian island. We burst of the exclusive coverage and mythological spectacle deletion the impact of communities, infrastructure and the environment. As the storm approached Sicily, among the clouds gathering killing the tempest to unparalleled proportions. Coastal area forced to onslaught the fierce winds and torrential rains, leading the widespread flooding in challenging conditions to both residents to emergency service. Out on the ground reported paint a vivid picture to havoc wreaked by the storm. The city of Palermo was transformed into rivers and water levels served submerged cars and tested to resilience to floodedness. The historic architecture stood the test time to the faces of relentless onslaught of the wind of rain. Throughout the island communities are grappling with the power outage, and the storm force caused significant damage to electrical infrastructure. Emergency shelters have been opened to provide refuge to those displaced by the storm. Italy is facing a major crisis after catastrophic floods swept through the parts of the country, with Sicily and Tuscany bearing the brunt of devastation. Torrential rain over the past week was causing rivers to overflow, triggering landslides, and left entire communities underwater. The flood, described as some of the worst in recent memory, have claimed lives, displaced thousands, and caused widespread damage to infrastructure and homes. In Sicily, the relentless rainstorm had left widespread flooding across urban and rural area alike. In the island capital Palermo, streets have turned into rivers, with the cars submerged and many residents forced to evacuate. Catania, another major city, has also been severely affected, with widespread damage reported in a historic center. The floods have overwhelmed the drainage system, leaving emergency services struggling to keep with the demand to rescue operations. Many people have been trapped in their homes, and helicopters have been destroyed to relieve residents from isolated areas. A powerful storm hit Sicily, plunging part of the Italian island into chaos as torrential rain, strong winds and flash floods swept through the Key skies, including Palermo, Catania and Messina. According to Italy's Civil Protection Department, the storm dumped more than 120 mm of rain in just a few hours, nearly a month's worth, flooding streets, collapsing roads, and prompting dozens of evacuations. Emergency service responded more than 300 calls using helicopters to board the rescue trapped residents. In Palermo, dramatic footage showed cars flooding like toys, and shops in the historic center of flooding. Giulia Romana, a 42-year-old local resident, said, "It was terrible. The water rushed into our house in a matter of minutes. The barrier had time to move the upper floor. Schools were closing in affected regions, and hundreds of people were left without power due to power outage." Authority also reported temporarily closed to Catania airport. The runway were flooded, caused delays and cancellations. Meteorologists explained the extreme weather conditions as a mitigant to rare Mediterranean hurricane formed by high sea temperature and unstable air masses. Sicily have been struck by a powerful and sudden storm, leaving widespread damage, flooded streets and stranded residents in its wake. Torrential rain, strong winds exceeded 100 km/h and have plummeted cities from Palermo to Catania, turned roads into rivers, and causing chaos in towns across the island. Residents reported being cut off guard by the intensity of the storm. "I never seen a rain came down like this in my life," say Maria Russo, a Palermo resident. "With the wind ripped off our shoulders and the streets filled with water within minutes." Emergency services were inundated with the calls, responded to fallen trees, blocked roads and damaged vehicles. Several small rivers in Catania and Messina overflowed, forcing evacuation in low-lying neighborhoods. Schools and public offices were closed, and local airports experienced flight cancellation due to heavy rainfall and poor visibility. Historic cities were also affected. In Palermo, parts of the old city separate minor flooded, while the Calendar and Traffa Massima saw water slipping into Contiat. Authorities report that the wind uprooted trees, damaged roofs and caused partial power outage in some areas and Veneto region. The city transport network was paralyzed, but buses were suspended and several bridges were temporarily closed due to high water levels. Meteorologists said the storm was fueled the powerful low-pressure system that swept across southern Europe during the most unstable air from the Mediterranean Sea. As a result, more than 120 mm of rainfall in few hours, half of Venice's normal monthly rainfall. Environmental groups have again warned that climate change is exacerbating extreme weather events across Italy. Venice is not a far front to the climate crisis, say meteorologist Luca Moretti. Without district action, this flooding will only get worse. As the storm subsides, the clean begin that the forces and not yet devastation flood severe as a painful reminder of Venice's fragile struggle with the sea. Late Tuesday night, a sudden hailstorm hit Rome, shocking the eternal city, and marble streets and historic squares were covered in ice. Residents described the storm as unexpected and terrified, with the hailstorm raged in the sides from the marble of golf balls, smashed cars, breaking windows and damaged roofs. Central areas such as Trastevere, Piazza Venezia and Termini were hardest hit, with the later levels rising rapidly in low-lying areas. Passengers were stranded on bases in cars, while residents sought shelters. It was like a winter storm in the middle of summer, said Luca De Santis, owner of cafe near Colosseum. Customers ran into the cafe screaming as hailstorms tore our umbrellas to pieces. The Italian fire service Valle de Fuoco received more than 300 emergency calls about flooded streets, fallen trees and damaged cars. Several metro stations, including Barbary and Repubblica, were temporarily closed due to water inside the tunnels. Authorities confirmed that at least 10 people suffered minor injuries after being hit by hail or slippery on ice sidewalks.